Hello and welcome. In this video we want to do a question about product rule and quotient rule of derivatives from the graphs of the functions. Here we are given graph of function f and graph of function g. And also suppose that function p of x is f times by g and function q is f over g. And now we want to answer these questions. What is f of -1? What is g of -1? And other questions that you can see here. And finally, we want to answer these two important questions. What is p prime of -1? And what is q prime of 2? And attention, function p and function q are the functions that are defined here. P is f times g and function q is f over g. So let's start answering these questions. First, we want to find what is f of -1. Look at the graph of function f and we have to find what is the value of the function f when x is -1. When x is -1, the function f value is 3. So f of -1 is 3. What is the value of the function g at -1? The y value of the function g at -1 is -1. Next, we want to find f prime of -1. F prime is the derivative of the function f. And we know that derivative of a function is the slope of the function, a slope of the curve of the function. So basically f prime is the slope of the function f at point -1. Point -1 is here under the curve f. And because this point lies on this line, basically the slope of the curve f is the slope of this line. So f prime of -1 is the slope of this line. If you remember, for finding the slope of a line, we use the rise over run rule. So we have to find rise over run. Rise over run for this line. What is the coordinate of this point here? The coordinate of this point is -2, 5. X value is -2, y value is 5. What is the coordinate of this point? The coordinate of this point is 0, 1. And so if we use these 2 points for finding the slope of this line, rise equals to y2 minus y1. If we consider this point as second point and this point as the first point, y2 minus y1 would be 1 minus 5. And x2 minus x1 would be minus -2. Numerator is -4, denominator is 2, so this equals to -4 over 2. What is -4 over 2? -2. So the slope of this line, or actually f prime of -1, equals -2. Let me erase these. We don't need to have these here. So f prime of -1 is -2. Next, we want to find g prime of -1. Again, g prime is the derivative of the function g, and derivative is the slope of the curve at that point. What is the slope of the curve g at -1? When x is -1, we have this point on the curve g. What is the slope of curve g at this point? if you draw the tangent line, you can see that the slope of curve G at -1 is 0. When we draw the tangent line is a horizontal line. So G prime of -1 is 0. This equals 0. Now let's find these values here. What is f of 2? When x is 2, the value of the function f when x equals 2 is 2. What is g of 2? When x equals 2, the value of the function g, focus on the green function, the g value of the function g at point 2 is also 2. Now we want to find f prime of 2 and g prime of 2. First we want to find f prime of 2. Again, f prime is the derivative of the function f. And when x is 2, point 2 is here on the curve f. And because this point lies on this line, we have to find the slope of this line for finding f prime of 2. And again, we have to find rise over run to answer this. For finding the slope of this line, again, I want to choose this point here. We know the coordinate of this point. The coordinate of this point is 0, 1. And for example, we can choose this point here on the curve f. The coordinate of this point is 2, 2. X is 2 and y is also 2. And now if we calculate the rise over run, this equals to 2 minus 1 over 2 minus 0. This equals 1/2. So the slope of this line, which point x equals 2 lies on that, is 1/2. So what is f prime of 2? F prime of 2 is 1/2. Let me erase these extra things from here. Finally, we want to find g prime of 2. For function g, when x equals 2, we have this point here. And now we have to find a slope of this line, because this is for function g when x is 2. Point 2 lies on this line, so we have to find a slope of this line. And again, we have to use the rise over run. Rise over run. You can choose any points, any 2 points on this line. I prefer to choose, for example, this point here, because I know the coordinate of this point. The coordinate is 1, 4. X value is 1. The y value is 4. And another point that we know its coordinate exactly is here, for example. What is the coordinate of this point? 4, 0. So rise over run would be 0 minus 4 over 4 minus 1. And this equals to -4 over 3. So the slope or derivative of the function g at 2 is -4 over 3. Now that we have these values, we want to answer our main questions that here we have. What is p prime at -1? But before we answer this, let me remind you what was p. P is basically defined to be f of x times g of x. So p equals to f of x times g of x. And we want to find p prime, so we have to find derivative of the function p. But the function p is f times g. For finding derivative of f times g, we have to use the product rule. Based on the product rule, p prime equals derivative of the first function. Derivative of f is f prime times by g plus, write the first function. It is f times derivative of the second function, g prime. So p prime equals f prime times g plus f times g prime. But we want the p prime at -1. So p prime at -1 equals f prime of -1 times g of -1 plus f of -1 times g prime of -1. But if you remember, we calculated all of these values here. F of -1 is 3. And f prime of -1 is -2. So f prime of -1 is again -2 times g of -1. What was g at -1? It was -1. So times -1 plus f of -1, 3, times g prime at -1. G prime at -1 is 0 times y 0, and this equals 2. Now let's see how we can find q prime at 2. If you remember, q is basically f over g. For finding q prime, derivative of q, we have to use quotient rule because we have f of x over g of x. Derivative of f of x over g of x based on the quotient rule is derivative of numerator times by the denominator minus, write the numerator itself, times by derivative of denominator all over whatever is in denominator to the 2. We want to find q prime at 2. So we have to plug in 2 for x. F prime of 2 times g of 2 minus f of 2 times g prime of 2 all over g of 2 all to the 2. We need these values here for finding q prime of 2. F of 2 is 2, g of 2 is 2. So g of 2 is 2, so in the denominator we have 2 to the 2. But what was f prime of 2? F prime of 2 is 1/2. So we have 1/2. G of 2 is 2 minus f of 2 is also 2 times g prime of 2. G prime of 2 is -4/3. -4 over 3. So from here, q prime of 2 equals 1 minus 2 times -4/3 is -8 over 3. We have a negative here, so it becomes plus 8 over 3 all over 4. 1 plus 8 over 3 is 11 over 3. Divide this by 4. Finally, what is q prime of 2? This equals to 11 over 3 times by reciprocal of 4, which is 1/4. So this equals to 11 over 12. I hope you liked this video and see you in the next videos.